I stood in a darkened corner of the ballroom and watched a couple swaying on the dance floor. Their eyes were fixed on each other. They were elegant in their movements. He moved with the grace of an athlete, and she followed suit. All eyes were fixed on them. There was an emotional bond between them, perhaps not love, but a bond stronger than friendship. I would have envied their bond if this woman wasn't my wife of 11 years in the arms of her boss. Instead, I felt anger and humiliation. It wasn't the first time we had attended her company's annual awards and appreciation banquet. We had attended 8 others over the years, and everyone who worked at the company even a little bit knew she was my wife. I could see people looking for me as they watched the spectacle playing out in front of us. They were all waiting for the explosion. After 3 dances, they walked out onto the parquet together and joined other colleagues at a round table in the center of the room. I watched her look at him with those bedroom eyes that were once only mine. Not that I'd seen them recently, but that didn't lessen the disgust that flared within me. The only thing that came to my mind was, it won't be long. The kettle was going to boil soon, and all I had to do was hold out a little longer. I was trying to reconcile my fear, hatred, and resentment towards this scene with the love, respect, and trust I once had for my beautiful wife. I had been losing this battle trying to overcome these feelings, but now I had fallen into despair and self-pity. I hung my head in defeat. I had spent the last few months working so hard to win her back, to rebuild my broken marriage. I made dates, did chores, turned off the TV, and tried to strike up a conversation, but she only waved me away. I left flowers, notes, and cards with loving sentiments, but found them in the trash. I've sent flowers to her work and never even heard if she got them or not. What else can I do but wait? I thought to myself. Pushing those thoughts out of my head, I walked back to the temporary bar in the corner of the room and stood behind Marianne, one of Kelsey's longtime work friends. Having fun? I asked, trying to keep an impassive look. I always like those annual parties. Harold loves the free booze, she replied. I smiled, raising my empty glass. Me too. Hey, I haven't seen Jason's wife today. Did she make it? I hoped my impatience wasn't apparent. She always dresses so elegantly, and it's nice to chat with her. Oh, didn't Kels mention that? Jason served her with divorce papers today. I think she's been neglecting her marital duties. I caught Marianne in just the right stage of intoxication, when she wasn't really thinking about the words coming out of her mouth. The result did not disappoint me. No, I guess not, since it's Friday night and all. We came here right after I got home from work, and we didn't get a chance to gossip. I had it all figured out, but it was a straight-up lie. We took the night off to go home and get ready for the evening. She had plenty of time to mention it, but she chose not to. I filled up my Captain and Diet, pulled out a glass of white wine for Kelsey, and headed over to the table where she and Jason were standing. Neither noticed my approach. They were too engrossed in each other. Kels, I brought you a glass of wine. I held out the glass to her. She jumped slightly when I spoke. Oh, you scared me, she squeaked and accepted the glass. Thank you, dear. The rest of us grew more and more uncomfortable the longer we all stood there. Most were finding something surprisingly interesting in the stained tablecloth or across the room, and weren't looking directly at me. Others looked, probably wondering what I was thinking and how blind I might be. One young man, about 25 years old, even smirked as he watched me observe the table. He and I met eyes. He lingered for a couple seconds, then his smirk disappeared, and he too found the tablecloth interesting. We were approaching 1 o'clock in the morning, and many of the guests had already left the hotel ballroom, heading home. But I could see that Kelsey wasn't ready to part ways with her dance partner. We should probably get home, honey. I still have to take the babysitter home, and we promised her we wouldn't stay out until 2 tonight, I said, realizing I was interrupting her interaction with Jason. Yeah, okay. I guess we should get going. I'll see you Monday. She smiled. There was a sense of relief all around us that the awkwardness was almost over. Jason, it's good to see you. I held out my hand, and we shook it. He was a strong man and tried his best to demonstrate it with his strong grip. He was 3 inches tall at my 6 feet, but I weighed about 15 pounds, and with a small pouch on my stomach. I pushed a little harder than usual, looking him straight in the eyes and seeing the reflection of deceit and smugness there. Finally, he shook off the shaking and said goodnight to us. I waved to the others as we walked from the room to the car. We didn't speak on the way home, though her smile seemed beaming. Once we were home, Kelsey went to check on Caitlin, our 9-year-old daughter, while I paid off Brittany and prepared to drive her home. When I returned, I made my way to the bedroom and found Kelsey already in bed and asleep. I checked on Caitlin, went to the bathroom, and went to bed in the spare room. I knew there would be no chance of sex tonight. I struggled to remember the last time we were together. My eyes closed, and I saw the ceiling for the last time, and then fell into sleep, running through my internal checklist for tomorrow in my head. Saturday morning, I got up early. Caitlin was already in the family room watching her shows, and I waved at her as I stopped in the doorway. "Have you had breakfast yet?" "Yep," she replied, waving a spoon dipped in milk in the air and smearing milk drops all over the carpet. "Okay, shh, Mom's still asleep, and I need to get some work done at the office. Okay?" "Okay, Daddy," she said softly, and I grinned. Well, that didn't work. Around 8:30, I called my lawyer's cell phone, knowing he worked from home on Saturday mornings. "Good morning, Bill. Matthew Franks here." "Good morning, Matt. I'm guessing this isn't a happy call?" he replied, already knowing the answer. "Right. Time to put the plan in motion. Found out that Jason filed his wife's application yesterday. Do we know if Kels has contacted a lawyer?" "I don't think so, but I'll call Slug and check. I'll meet you in half an hour at the coffee shop. You sign and date the forms, and my assistant will notarize them. We'll file the paperwork first thing Monday morning, and she'll be filed by lunchtime." "Sounds good to me. See you soon." I arrived at the coffee shop early. Smiling weakly at the cute girl behind the counter, I took my order and settled into a comfortable chair by the fireplace. I reflected on the fact that I never thought I would divorce the one true love of my life. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment when you realize your comfortable life is coming to an end, but I can come pretty close. It was a traffic ticket, one of those automatic red light camera deals. When you run a red light, they take a picture of the driver, the license plate number, and the date and time. That's about it. I found the ticket when I got the mail. I laughed and immediately knew it was Kelsey's. She always ran red lights when she was in a hurry. I opened it, deciding I would just cry and not say a word. No good would come of it if I argued with her. The driver's picture showed Kelsey, and to her right was the shoulder and arm of an obviously male. His face wasn't visible, but I knew who it was. No big deal. She could have been at lunch or on her way to a meeting. Whatever. I checked the date and time. March 5th at 1439. Something about that date didn't appeal to me. After all, it wasn't that long ago. I started looking through my phone and found our text messages from the 5th. Kelsey at 11. 19. Stopping by Mary's after work to pick up clothes for Kate. I remember thinking it wasn't unusual. Mary's daughter was a couple years older, and we'd gotten cute things from them, though I thought Mary usually brought them to work. Still, my radar wasn't beeping. Matt at 12:03. Don't worry. Do you want me to make dinner? Kelsey 12:10. Yeah. What time should I expect you? 6 o'clock, we can talk for a minute. All right. Have fun. Thanks, we will. What a bitch, I thought, checking the intersection on Google Maps. It was at the opposite end of town from where Mary Ann lived. Still, it could be innocent, couldn't it? But then I started putting the pieces together. Since late November, Kelsey had been acting estranged. All through the holidays, I noticed us fighting over the smallest things. By January, she stopped holding my hand while shopping or walking. The topics of our mutual conversations began to center around work or Caitlin. We no longer talked about our dreams or discussed family vacations or our future. I had a trust fund from my childhood. My great-grandfather bought a lot of undeveloped land in the Pacific Northwest, logged most of it, and made a fortune. Then, when the local town grew, he sold parcels of land back to the town. When he died, I got the benefit of those purchases, and several 100K went into that trust. When my grandfather died, the trust grew again, and grew again. I never needed to get into it, as my family was self-supporting. The balance stabilized, and even grew a little as it was set up to accrue interest. After my father died, when my mother had already passed away, I inherited all of his assets. I simply transferred his trust into my own. With the accumulated wealth, the three of us were close to providing for ourselves for life, but Kelsey and I continued to work and build up our capital in preparation for retirement. When Kelsey and I got married, I was advised to draw up a prenuptial agreement to protect the fund. Every few years, we updated the prenup and our wills. One clause that always remained the same was the standard, "What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours" divorce clause. But we added a clause about Caitlin receiving an education in the event of my death or our divorce. Of course, the mechanism and circumstances of my death were stipulated. Obviously, Kelsey would see nothing if she had a hand in my demise. Because of this, I had had access to a family lawyer and accounting services for years. I contacted my attorney and learned the name of the best local divorce attorney. I scheduled an appointment with him for later in the week to see what my options were. Since we had a solid prenup in place, he was not concerned about any financial issues. I explained that I wasn't ready to take drastic action at this point. I just wanted to know what steps to take next. "Matt, we could bring in a private investigator to check out what's going on and see if there's any cause for concern. Unfortunately, all my investigators are busy right now. It will be several weeks before they can devote time to your case," Bill Manson explained. "I really don't want to wait. I'm already losing sleep over this." "Are there any other options?" I asked. "Well, there is one. He's trying to start a business, but not many people trust him. We call him Larry the Slug." Bill continued to explain. "He's an ex-cop who was retired because of a history of complaints and questionable activities. He could start work right now, but I don't know if I'd recommend maintaining a long-term relationship with him." "And why do you call him the bastard?" I asked, laughing. "I want it to be legal so that if we find something, we'll be on solid ground if we have to move on." "Absolutely, he's legit. He has a habit of extracting information like detailed photos and videos and emails and phone calls that, shall we say, walk a fine line of admissibility in court. But I've been told that what he finds is strong evidence of infidelity in one case or another." "All right, as long as he's legal. We can always pay him off and move on to a more reputable private investigator in a couple weeks." I paused. "Do you think he can start today?" "I'll call him and find out. I'll be your go-between here at the office. I'll let you know later today." "Sounds good, thanks." I filled out a bunch of paperwork for both the lawyer and Snail, put him in touch with my accountant, and left a prepayment from my personal account. Kelsey didn't have access to it, so she wasn't supposed to know what I was up to. I didn't want to scare her, especially if I was wrong and it was just a rough patch in our marriage. While all this was going on, I decided to try to repair my relationship with my wife. My life experience told me that people don't change or do uncharacteristic things unless there is a catalyst. Since I didn't know what that catalyst was for my wife, and I didn't know if we were past the point of no return, I decided to make sure I took care of myself as a husband. I picked myself up and did everything I could to make her feel loved and valued as an equal partner in our relationship. I courted her and set a goal for myself to be the kind of husband that would be the envy of all her friends. I was rebutted at every turn, and it became obvious that we were past the point of no return. One Thursday afternoon, I was invited back to Bill's office to get what Spy had found. I was shown hours of footage of them meeting, having fun and playing happy couple. There were photos, phone records, and their personal emails. I was both impressed and disgusted by Slug, but agreed that his nickname was well-deserved. I sat devastated. I never thought she could be having an affair with Jason Stanton. I guess I could understand why she might have been attracted to Jason. He was tall, handsome, and well-built. He was cultured and fast-paced in both his work and personal life. He had taken over Kelsey's department about a year ago. As his personal assistant, Kelsey worked closely with Jason, which gave him endless opportunities to get to know Kelsey and work his way into her life. Jason was a star college baseball player, and the only thing that kept him from making it to the big leagues was a shoulder injury his senior year of high school. Who wouldn't be impressed with this guy? I just never thought Kelsey would let him come between us. It was all too much. I gasped, my chest squeezed, my vision blurred, and I thought I was going to pass out. I leaned my chair back, put my head between my knees, and tried to focus on my breathing. Inhale, exhale, inhale, and exhale until my head cleared. The feeling of loss and emptiness is impossible to describe. I had just lost my best friend, confidant, lover, and mother of my child. At that moment, I saw no way out of the situation, and that's when Slug piled on even more. He turned on the tape from the day before and explained why he wanted to get us all together. Kelsey. Really? You love me? You could hear the excitement in her voice. Jason. Yes, my dear. You are the most perfect woman. I love you and I want us to be a family. Kelsey. You mean you, me, and Caitlin? Jason. Of course. Kelsey. What about Matt and Shannon? Jason. We'll divorce them. You get Caitlin, and we'll live as a happy family. There was a pause in the conversation, and I assumed Kelsey was digesting the bombshell her lover had just dropped on her. You do love me, don't you, Kels? Kelsey. Yes, of course I do. I never considered leaving Matt. That's all. Jason. Well, think about it. He'll never be able to give you what I can give you. You'll be the belle of all the balls. You'll be part of high society. You'll go places and see things that a loser could never afford. I could hear the contempt in his voice and imagine the expression his face took on when he spoke. He would die if he lost Kate. We are his world. Jason. I'll be 10 times better father than that loser, and in a year she won't even want to date him. Kelsey. Why do you hate him so much? What did he do to you? There was a note of concern in her voice. Honestly, I'd like to know that too. Jason. He doesn't deserve you, Kels. That loser has no ambition or drive to be anything more than he is now. A coward making someone else rich. Kelsey. You know he's a plant manager, right? His plant employs 400 people, and they have the highest production and highest revenue per square foot of any plant. I was a little proud that Kelsey knew that, although I would have preferred this conversation to take place in their dining room rather than in a hotel room. Jason. He's a weak beta who had no drive or ambition in school, and he didn't even get an MBA. He's served his time, and I can destroy him any day of the week. Kelsey. Jason, don't think you're so much better than Matt. He's not a wimp. You don't know about his younger years. He's run with bad guys and is very good with guns. He almost went down a bad path himself until he decided to go to school. That's why he didn't go to college for a few years after high school. Now it sounded like she was bragging. Kelsey. He's stronger and tougher than you give him credit for. Please promise me you won't fight him. I wouldn't want either of you to get hurt. He for Kate's sake and you for mine. But I don't love him anymore. I wish I did. But you've replaced him as my man, as my love. She paused as if pondering. How will that happen, and when? Jason. We will divorce them at the same time. I need to get some things in order before I file for Shannon. But with her psychiatric issues and the fact that we haven't had anything for a year, it won't be hard to do. I'll split everything 50-50ths. She's not likely to argue. Kelsey. Fine, but you have to file the paperwork for Shannon before I contact a lawyer, she stated defiantly. I guessed she wanted to back up and not lose her comfortable life at the moment, even for her true love, her man. Jason. Deal. Now come here, woman. I asked, turning off the tape at this point. I didn't need to hear anything else. I looked at Bill and asked, how do I handle this? You strike the first blow, Matt. But what if she changes her mind? They rarely change, Mr. Franks. I'm afraid they've gotten to the point where nothing you do or say will make them stop or repent. I got my first good look at Slughorn. He was about 30 years old, athletically built, and the suit fit him well, not at all what I had imagined. He was respectful and probably right, I thought. I was beginning to see him as Larry, not the bastard. I got the feeling that this guy was really on my side. Even if I was paying, he cared and was disgusted by what he was seeing and hearing from these two. Would you want her after what you know now? Added Larry. I guess you're right, Larry. Turning to Bill, he said, Bill, give me a day or two to make up my mind and I'll call you. Okay? Sounds good, Matt. Can I start working on the basic documents and we'll add the details later or trash the whole thing if you want? Yeah, let's do that. Larry followed me out and held out his card to me. It has my personal number on it, Mr. Franks, in case you ever need me. Please, Larry, call me Matt. Thank you. Matt, I know some people who will help you get your revenge if you decide to go that route. They don't call me Larry the Sleuth for nothing, he said with a smile. I laughed and said, That's good to hear, Larry. I'll let you know if I need that kind of help. And seriously, thanks for the offer. I don't think I could do that with Kels, but I like knowing I have a friend if I decide to go that route. Larry smiled at me and waved as he headed to his car. I had been thinking about my choice all weekend. I could barely focus on anything else, and Kelsey didn't even seem to notice that I was deciding the fate of our family. But it occurred to me that she had already decided it for all of us. I struggled with all the feelings: doubt, anger, fear, and frustration. Most of all, I suffered the humiliation and loss of my manhood, for my self-identity was my job and my family. What would I be without my family? I thought. I worried about Caitlin and how she would transition into the next chapter. I was annoyed at the thought of that arrogant bastard raising my daughter. I even had flashes of thoughts of him walking my daughter down the aisle at her wedding. My emotions and thoughts were a mess. No matter how much I flooded them with alcohol, it wasn't until Sunday morning that clarity came. As I sat on the back porch squirming with a hellish headache, I realized that it was likely going to happen, no matter how much I resisted. I had already lost my wife. I could see the contempt in her eyes. I had already lost my family. What mattered now was on whose terms and on what terms I would lose everything. And then the old adage hit me: lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. I wasn't going to get out of the way, and I wasn't ready to follow these crooks. So I had only one choice: lead. Monday morning, I called Bill. Bill, Matt Franks here. Good morning, Matt. Are you any closer to a decision? Yes, I am. I'd like you to draw up all the necessary paperwork, adding only the legal documents Larry got. We'll split everything 50-50. I paused. You want to sell the house? Yes. We took out a low-interest loan from my trust fund to buy it, so we've been paying ourselves the whole time. We'll split the equity we received, but I'll pay back the full amount of the loan and the interest we've paid over the years. I'm a winner, I replied. Also, please add $200,000 for Kels from my trust. Consider it payment for services rendered. She may be more amiable if she knows she won't be left with no money at all. I want primary custody of Kate. I know it won't be easy, but maybe Larry can find some dirt on our boy Jason that won't make him look like a suitable father to a young girl. I heard he was a first-class frat boy in college. Maybe he was a little fresh with some of his conquests. Sick Larry, please. I have a backup plan for Kate. If we get too many objections to primary custody, please email me the most generous shared custody plan you've ever heard of. I paused for a second so Bill could catch up with me. I also want to sue Jason for alienation of love and affection, and find a way to get his wife Shannon involved. I want her to be completely legally aware of everything that's going on. And speaking of her, please draft another adultery divorce case and prepare it for her. I'll pay for her services. I think she should get what she deserves, and let it be ugly. We can sue both of them for foreclosure, but you should know that won't get you anywhere. I also need her to sign a contract with me. I can prepare all the necessary forms, but without her consent or information, there's not much I can do, explained Bill. I understand. I just want to shake the tree a little, and while you're at it, I want to sue Kelsey's company for allowing her to sleep with her boss. I'm sure they don't have a morals clause in their handbook, but it should be questionable for any company to have that happen under their watch. He is her immediate supervisor. I know this is probably going nowhere, but let's shake that tree again and see what falls out of it. Okay, Matt, it's going to cost a lot of money and then more. You're talking about a lot of man hours and even more if the case is argued. I realize it's just money, and at this point, I'll empty my trust if I need to make sure those two don't get more than what's owed to them. And like my daddy used to say, every time you get a lawyer involved, you just negotiate how much it's going to cost. I have one, so I might as well use it. Bill laughed at my snide remark about lawyers. Sounds like he was a smart man. You know you don't have to give her any money from your trust. Your prenup is airtight. I know, Bill, but I thought about it all weekend and decided that if I didn't leave her destitute, she might be more willing to agree to my demands, and she deserves it. She worked hard and helped me keep it from unnecessary shenanigans. We both counted on it to be our nest egg for our old age. I figured it would give her an advantage over Jason, and when she was on her own, she wouldn't have to rely on him so much. She deserves more than that, but there's no way in hell I'm giving that cheating bastard Jason more than he's already taken. I mean, my wife should be enough. I felt furious at the mere thought of Jason taking over a life that should have been mine. I had always considered myself fair in matters and wanted to make sure I treated Kelsey fairly, even if she didn't reciprocate. I was comforted by the fact that I was sure Caitlin would approve of my actions later when she realized how our family had broken up. One last thing, Bill. Don't file the papers just yet. I want everything done, dotting the I's and T's and getting everything ready. I want to wait for her to make the first move. It will give me more time to be with Kate in our family home. I realize there will come a point when I need to pull the trigger, but I want it to be at the last moment when I can't deal with it anymore. Understood. We can leave it undated and notarized until you're ready. I work Saturday mornings from home, so if it falls through on the weekend, you can call me. We won't be able to file until Monday morning anyway, but I can have someone stand at the door when it opens and hand it in the same day. Okay, that's the plan. We said our goodbyes and hung up. I pulled Larry's business card out of my pocket and dialed the number. Larry, Matt Franks. How are you doing? I'm fine, he replied. Are you ready for some scrappy entertainment? Well, sort of, but I want you to wait for my word, okay? No problem, Matt. What are we talking about? Can we meet in person? Yeah, give me an hour and I'll meet you at Duncan on 6th. Sounds good, I replied. I was already waiting for him to pull into the parking lot. He grabbed a coffee and snacks and then sat down across from me. I want you to gather all the materials, pictures, videos, recordings, anything you have. We need to find a way to get it to Shannon Stanton anonymously, maybe by email? No problem. I know a guy who works on the dark web, stated Larry. That's it? What about putting the video up on a website or sending nasty things to her parents or coworkers? He asked. God, he's disgusting, I thought. No, Kels will still have to be seen in town. I don't want her to be humiliated enough to leave town with Kate, and I still love that stupid bitch, even if she doesn't love me anymore. I placed an envelope with $5,000 in cash on the table. That should get you started, but let me know if you need more. Larry swallowed the money and looked at me. $3,000 is enough for everything. He may be sneaky, but at least he's honest. Keep the remaining amount as an advance. I may need your expertise later. Don't forget that the case will lie with you until I call you. I want to take them by surprise, and I have reason to let them make the first move. Oh, we should also find out what problems his wife is having. Her medical history may play a role in what we decide later. Is that possible? I asked a smiling Larry, then just smiled and nodded back at him. Didn't Bill ask you to look for information on Jason's college years? I'm looking for anything I can use against them if we have a custody fight. He nodded his head again and made a couple of notes in his notebook. We finished our coffee and chatted about his career as a cop and people we might have known. We finished, shook hands, and parted ways. That was 3 months ago. I was brought back to reality by the arrival of Bill, and shortly afterward, his assistant and Larry. "So, time to go, huh?" asked Bill as everyone settled around us. "Yeah, looks like it." "Larry, do we know if Kels has been to the lawyer's office yet?" "Not that I know of, no. I did a quick look through her email after Bill called and didn't find anything. I'll look more closely today and find out by Monday morning," Larry said. "La la la la, I didn't hear that," exclaimed Bill, plugging his ears with his index fingers. "I can't know these things, Larry." Larry smiled and nodded, winking slyly at me. "What about Jason? Any dirty laundry?" I asked hopefully. "Yeah, he's been under investigation with his fraternity. I got copies of everything and have already given them to Bill." Bill looked up, nodded in affirmation, and added, "I have them in case I need them at the custody hearing." Pulling out the documents we'd been working on for the past few months, he showed me where to sign. While I signed and Bill's assistant notarized it, I turned to the group. "Larry, can you find out who Shannon Stanton has hired as an attorney? And let Bill know? And then, Bill, if he's worthy, could you share our legal file with him?" I asked the group. "And if he's not a worthy lawyer?" Bill asked. "Then we'll put Shannon in touch with you somehow, but I'd rather we do it right. Larry, I don't think we need to send her a nasty message." Larry nodded, sipping his coffee, and Bill looked at the two of us. "Bill, can I pick up the paperwork Monday afternoon? I'll get the paperwork to Kels myself first and let her know what's going on, and then you can officially hand her the paperwork on Tuesday?" Bill nodded his understanding and talked to his assistant about the seals and getting the server ready for Tuesday. "And then I'd like Jason and their company to be served Tuesday afternoon. I think we can exclude Shannon from the foreclosure suit since she'll be up to speed soon. Bill, you can share the file with Shannon's attorney Monday afternoon, unless he fails my conversation with Kels Monday night." I leaned back in my chair and sighed. It should be ready by Wednesday. "Matt, have you thought about where Kelsey is staying Monday night yet?" inquired Bill. "No, just now." "Do you mind if she stays at the house for a few days?" "Not unless you get a restraining order and she agrees. I wouldn't sleep with her. Legally, I don't think it's a problem, but it might be uncomfortable for you. I would be wary of what a not-too-squeamish lawyer would do with that information," Bill added. "All right, I'll give her a week to find a place. We're not entertaining it now." "I don't see the problem." "Oh, you mean sleeping in the same bed?" "But our papers give me temporary control of the house and Kate, don't they?" I asked. "Yes, until her lawyer files a motion and revokes everything or until we all come to an agreement." "I meant sleeping in the same bed. It just might give a strange impression when the papers are filed," Bill stated. "Don't worry, we're not sleeping together right now." "Larry, what have you learned about Shannon's medical condition?" "She's been battling depression and bipolar disorder for years. Apparently, the medication killed her attraction, and Mr. Wonderful went looking for her." I noticed Larry was about to add something else and cut myself short, remembering that I was married to someone Jason had found, and I smiled at him. "I guess we don't want to know how you found out." Larry just smiled and shook his head, and Bill feigned shock. "Bill, do we care about that?" I asked. "No, not now. It can play a role later when we get to the custody issue and figure out who lives with whom and when. We can include that as a condition in the finalization so that Caitlin is never alone with her." As he spoke, Bill was making notes on his iPad. "Okay, I don't see this as a problem since they don't have kids and they're getting a divorce. Better safe than sorry." I grimaced. Divorce is a nasty business, I thought to myself. We chatted for a few more minutes, and one by one we finished our strategy session and moved on. I felt a little down the rest of the weekend. The responsibilities I had to fulfill on Monday were weighing heavily on me. Kelsey didn't notice it, nor did I expect her to. On Sunday, I called my aunt and arranged for her to pick Caitlin up from school on Monday and stay overnight so I could talk to Kelsey about some important family matters. They lived on a farm outside of town, and Kate loved playing with their dogs and feeding the animals. She would be dropping Caitlin off at school on Tuesday, so I decided that we would break the news to Caitlin on Tuesday night. I informed Caitlin of the arrangement, and she was excited, although she was a little puzzled as to why Monday night. But again, I decided that Mom and Dad needed some alone time to talk things over. She agreed, but reluctantly. I was sleeping in the spare room more and more often, and Kelsey never mentioned it. She looked relieved when she saw me heading there to sleep. Sunday night, I lay there going over my checklist and double-checking my plan and finally dozed off sometime in the early morning. Early Monday morning, I called my VP of operations and explained that I needed the day off. I also called my assistant and senior production manager to give them all the details they needed to know while I was gone. Around 1 p.m., I walked into Bill's office and happened to catch Larry there. I saw a stack of papers on the desk, and judging by the fact that the office was bustling with activity, everyone was busy. Matt, we filed the papers with the court this morning. Here are Kelsey's papers as you requested, and we've arranged a formal service at your house around 9 o'clock Tuesday morning. Is that okay with you? Asked Bill, holding out the envelopes to me. Yeah, that should work. I'm going to convince her to take the rest of the week off. I'll call you if anything changes, I replied. Okay. Okay. Bill paused briefly to gather his thoughts, then continued. Larry found Shannon's lawyer, and he's pretty good, so I sent him our paperwork and he's drooling. At first glance, it looks like he's going to offer a countersuit for adultery and a bunch more assets than a 50-50th split, and he's promised not to do anything until morning, so it's all good. Okay, gentlemen, are we forgetting anything? I asked, a little overwhelmed and depressed. Snip! It looks like Kelsey has an appointment with her lawyer next week, as far as I can tell from her calls and emails today. And Matt, please let me know if you need any more help. Yes? Asked Larry discreetly, earning another sharp look from Bill at what we had going on. Okay, fine. I'll let Larry know, but I think we're okay, I replied, hoping I wouldn't have to get even dirtier than I already did. I guess it's up to Kelsey and Jason now. I walked out of Bill's office and texted Kelsey. Kelsey, will you be home at a decent time tonight? Kelsey at 2:02:5:30. Why? What's up? Matt at 2:04. Nothing. I got a little distracted over the weekend and wanted to try and catch up tonight. Say, I arranged for Aunt Alex to come over to Kate's house tonight and stay with me. Thought I'd bring a home-cooked meal. Any interest? Kelsey at 2:16. How cute, do as. Chinese. Matt at 2:20. Done. I'll have dinner ready at 5:30. I felt like a total ass setting her up like that, but it wasn't uncommon lately. I hoped she just thought I was going out of my way to be extra nice and loving. Monday evening, 5:30. Kelsey got home around 5:15 and changed her clothes while I set the table and arranged the dishes. I poured a couple glasses of wine and was already sitting at the table when she showed up. She took a long swig from her glass, and we passed the food back and forth. We made small talk while we ate, and she didn't seem to have any idea what was about to happen. How's the rest of your week going? I asked when our meals had subsided and we were both just picking at our favorite foods on our plates. Pretty easy. Did you have anything you wanted to plan? She asked, casting a leering look at me. No, I thought you might want to take a week off after our conversation, I said monotonously, trying not to give away my emotions. Why would I do that? I know, Kels, I began, placing the envelope on the table in front of her. She just looked at it and then back at me, taking a sip of wine. I know about Jason and you planning on filing for divorce. She coughed slightly, choking on her wine, and stared at me with a blank stare. I could see the gears working in her head, trying to figure out how I knew or what she was going to do to slow me down. What divorce? She finally exhaled. The one you're meeting with an attorney about next week, and the one Jason has already filed on Shannon. I know you're in love with him and plan to take Kate and leave me. I opened the packet and handed her some pictures. Her eyes got big. She set her glass down and took the pictures and looked through them. I saw her eyes moisten, and she started to hiccup slightly, like she does when she gets too emotional. I'm so sorry, Matthew. I never meant for any of this to happen. I I I don't know what else to say. She lowered her gaze to the table. I know, Kels. I've known about your plans for months now. I've had time to come to terms with it all. I'm very disappointed in you, and I'm in a lot of pain. I held my breath for a moment to regain my confidence and contain the anger that came over me. The only thing I want to know is, did I do something or not do something that drove you to Jason? Oh God, no, she exclaimed, looking into my eyes for a second, and then retreated back to the table, I guess out of guilt and shame. I, it, it just happened. You didn't, you didn't do anything to push me away. You've been a great husband and father. I, I just fell in love with him, she finally said. I was both disappointed and relieved. I guess I couldn't help it if she'd just fallen out of love with me and decided to take Jason. He'd had plenty of time to work his way into her heart and displace me, and now there was nothing I could do to prevent it. Our marriage was dead, and all that was left was paperwork. I pulled out the terms of the divorce and held it out to her. Here's the agreement I'm proposing. I've already filed the paperwork. So you don't have to do this if you don't agree with what I'm asking. The basic stipulations are as follows. The prenuptial agreement is in effect, so my trust is out of the question. I'm offering to sell everything we don't need and split it 50/50ths. This, of course, includes the house. Since I filed the suit first, I am asking for full custody of Caitlin and minimal alimony from you. Of course, you'll have a very loose visitation schedule. I'll keep her on my insurance, but of course, you'll need to get your own. You will keep your 401k and any investments you had before marriage, as well as the inheritance you got from your mom. I wouldn't want to take anything away from you that really belongs to you. We will split all the investments we started making together. Kate and I will stay in the house until we sell it. I am also setting aside $200,000 from my trust for you to manage on your own. I would encourage you to get a prenup and protect it if you get together with Jason as you planned. I wouldn't want you to lose anything. I want to make sure you can be on your own since I'm asking for no spousal support. I paused, watching her absorb what I had just laid out for her. I think I should have Caitlin. The girl needs a mother when she gets older. She replied emphatically. I totally agree, but you can do it remotely by visiting and calling. Honestly, I don't trust Jason with our daughter. I already know he plans to try to turn her away from me with gifts and his suave personality. Since he couldn't produce his own child, he needs mine. And I think I have acted more than magnanimously in allowing him to have my wife already, but he will not have my daughter as well. I understand you'll want to negotiate custody. I suggest we let the lawyers earn their money and try to be civil. I offered, seeing how red her face had gotten while talking about Kate and Jason. He would never hurt her, and it would be up to you to take her away. Separating her from her mother is a good way to do it. Well, either way, she's staying with me until we figure out something else. You can stay here in the master bedroom for a few nights or a week until you get things sorted out. Kelsey, I still love you with all my heart. I thought we were going to conquer the world together. But you're killing me here, and I don't know what else to do. My world is falling apart, and I'm trying my best to be fair and kind. I really don't want to hurt you the way you hurt me. But believe me, if you go nuclear or let Jason get into our business, I will return kindness for kindness. And honey, I have resources that neither of you have. My tone changed, and she finally heard the anger in my words. I knew how to play hardball if pressed. She'd seen it before. So please, let's leave it at that and let the lawyers sort it all out. I would really like to be polite and courteous to you anytime we meet. I think it will be important for Caitlin to see us socializing. I plan for both of us to be actively involved in our daughter's life. I pleaded with her. I really didn't want this to be a knockout drag-out fight. I'm off work for the rest of the week, and according to the law, you have to be officially served with a summons, which is scheduled here at the house for 9 in the morning. I didn't want you to embarrass yourself at work, so you might consider calling in and taking a few days off too. I know it's going to be stressful for both of us being home, but I thought we could meet up with Caitlin tomorrow night, or keep her home on Wednesday to explain what's going on. What do you think? Kelsey had stopped eating by this time and was looking a little pale and sore. I think the consequences of her action had finally gotten to her. She had only herself to blame. I was fat, dumb, and happy until she set off this shit storm. She looked up at me, did her best to act like a fish in water, and then said, "Okay, Matt. You obviously planned well and got ahead of us. I don't know how, but you did it. I'll call work first thing and at least I'll be home by Wednesday. Do you think Alex will be able to keep her tomorrow night? Maybe just keep her out of school tomorrow and bring her home Wednesday morning so we can talk?" "Larry Slughorn," I said proudly, before continuing when she threw me a confused look. "My private investigator, Larry, found out after I got a few hints that something was rotten in Denmark. I'll call Aunt Alex right away. I think that's a great idea." Kelsey gave me a slight nod when I mentioned Larry, took the papers I gave her, and said goodnight. I guess she needed some time alone to digest what had happened, and I watched as she headed to the master bedroom where she closed and locked the door, which wasn't a problem since I had already moved most of my casual clothes and belongings into the spare room. I called my aunt and explained that we had a little family problem that we were working out, and sure enough, she agreed to keep Caitlin one more night and bring her back Wednesday mid-morning. I also talked to Caitlin and informed her that she would not be going to school the next day. She was still confused, but accepted it. I told her that my mom and I would explain everything on Wednesday. As I was putting things away and getting ready for bed, I heard Kelsey mumble something through the door as if she was on the phone, and later there were light sobs as she mourned the loss of our marriage. Tuesday. I heard Kelsey get up early and make plans for work while walking downstairs in casual clothes. At 9, she opened the door and accepted the official summons and packet of papers, minus the photos and statements. These she should have familiarized herself with last night in her room. Immediately afterward, she took her keys and purse and left without telling me exactly where she was going. But I figured it was to meet with Jason, her lawyer, or someone else with whom I could sympathize. Later in the afternoon, I got a call from Bill informing me that both Jason and their company had received our lawsuits. It turned out that Jason had been served with Shannon's countersuit around the same time, and he was already out of luck. Bill mentioned that I should stay away and be wary, as apparently the server had mentioned Jason's threats against me. I never thought Jason would turn out to be too stupid since he gets everything he wants. But just in case, I went to my gun safe and pulled out my 1911 and .45 ACP, made sure it was loaded, cocked and locked, and put it in my chair while I watched TV. A few hours later, I was standing at the sink when I saw a black BMW pull up in my driveway, from which an enraged Jason jumped out, opened the back door, and pulled out a baseball bat. I decided it was best to retreat to the chair where my cell phone lay and call 911. Knowing the door was locked made me feel safer. I dialed 911 and told the operator that my wife's boyfriend was in my driveway with a baseball bat, and they directed several cars in my direction. Just then, I heard a second car pull up outside, and from the yelling and tone of voices, I figured it was Kelsey. Then, there was a high-pitched scream. I jumped as the front door shattered from the heavy impact, and a furious Jason burst in, screaming at the top of his lungs, "You got me fired and ruined my divorce!" He was boiling and foaming at the mouth, and I put my right hand down on the grip of the gun, and the feel of it calmed me down. Jason swung the bat wildly, and I could hear Kelsey screaming outside, begging him to come back. "I took your wife, and now I'm gonna destroy you, you goddamn wimp." I let him walk another 5 feet before I pulled the gun from the seat cushion. His eyes were narrowed, and you could tell his sanity was impaired. His bat rose above his head, but it wasn't very effective at 25 feet. The crack of the cartridge in the chamber was deafening. 3 shots had been fired. Now I could hear the screams through the ringing in my ears. It surprised me how loud the gun was in the cramped room. I began to hear sirens and police shouting. Not realizing how extreme the situation was, they put Kelsey on her stomach and handcuffed her in front of the open door, her screaming and yelling not subsiding. I was still shocked by the events that were unfolding in front of me and finally focused on the gun pointed in my face and the officer yelling, "Stop! Stop off the gun!" He ordered, and I came to my senses a bit, dropping my weapon and following his commands and laying down on the floor. Epilogue. The next few weeks were hectic and overwhelming. Jason was pronounced dead at the scene. I later learned from police reports and eyewitness testimony that he had apparently been served with my lawsuit and updated divorce papers from his wife around the same time. It didn't take him long to realize that the photos were taken by me. Kelsey stood next to him as he opened the envelope from his wife and confirmed that she had the same set. Moments later, they were both summoned to the vice president's office where they confessed their infidelity, having no idea how it would end. Knowing that my lawsuit against the company would go nowhere, and it didn't, the executives saw fit to make themselves known by firing the managing director for having an affair with a subordinate, which they did. At that moment, I was the epitome of evil to Jason, and he decided that I should pay for standing up to him and ruining his plans. Grabbing one of his souvenir bits from the office, he decided to raid my house. Kelsey saw him through the second-floor conference room window and guessed where he might be headed. She met him in our driveway and tried to calm him down before he hurt me. Of course, neither of them knew that I had been warned of their arrival and had prepared. Kelsey got a black eye when Jason hit her with a stiff arm when she tried to stop him from entering our house. Other than that, she didn't have any other injuries, but she had been having nightmares for several months that left several counselors unable to find work. I talked to her once or twice between police interviews, prosecutors, and courtroom visits, but we never had a serious conversation about what happened in our house. Kelsey was starting to look like her old self. I guess losing her husband, lover, and daughter in less than 24 hours was taking its toll. She never recovered. Kelsey stayed by her side during the divorce, and probably for a month after it was finalized. She didn't even hire a lawyer or contest the divorce. I easily won custody of Caitlin. To my surprise, she never accepted her portion of the financial compensation. Bill kept it for her, but returned it to me a year later. She also never returned to our home and lived with friends and relatives until she disappeared. She had a few supervised dates with Caitlin, but they were hit and miss. I made sure Caitlin was available for every scheduled visit, whether we had confirmation from Kelsey or not, but she showed up about every fourth visit. I was told that Kelsey was addicted to painkillers and other drugs that were prescribed to calm her down and help her become an adult, and by the time she disappeared, she was without a job, without friends, and without a livelihood. Neither Caitlin, myself, nor anyone she knew had any contact information about her, and we never heard from her again. We have no idea what became of her. We lost our wife and mother. The house was sold. Caitlin and I bought another house in her school's neighborhood and tried to get our lives together. After the traumatic event, we both went to counselors. I did for 6 months, but in the end, I just had to bury the resentment and pain and move on. I had a daughter to raise and a life to live. Caitlin spent several years with a psychologist, on and off, partly because of her mother's reaction to the event, and because she had been abandoned. She needed to work through some issues. It took me 3 years to get clean enough to even think about dating. A few months later, I met a wonderful woman named Jo who was understanding and respectful of Caitlin's experience and mine. We dated much longer and slower than either of us would have liked, but eventually moved into a physical relationship, and about 16 months later, we were married. We raised our daughter Caitlin and Jo as a family, but never expanded. Our lives stabilized and improved over time. The hiccups only occurred during important events in Caitlin's life, her high school and college graduations. Each time, I hired Larry to try to find Kelsey, but all searches led to dead ends. The general consensus was that she must have died somewhere, lonely and wanton. It was a horrible experience, but we did our best to move on with our lives. I was so glad I had time to develop a plan of action and the right people in my corner to execute it. The end. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.